This is the original esport racing game. This is iRacing.
Last season saw a scant 3 winners out of 12 rounds, with Dudagnon and Claridge stealing the show. But the slate has been wiped clean once more, and a new set of 12 rounds opens the door for any driver to attempt to bring the two titans down to earth. Few have been able to cope with their speed and tenacity, but it has not proved impossible. Will last season's dominance incentivize everyone to put a target on their backs? We'll find out soon as we get ready to watch the opening round of the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legend Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global Sim Racing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Johan Vandenbelt. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Johan, Watkins Glen plays host to today's season opener, and considering how popular it is usually with the 49 drivers, I think it should give us a good show.
Absolutely, Joe. This track is one of my personal favorites, and racing here always provides some great action. Now, a little bit about the track. Watkins Glen is located in New York on the southern tip of Seneca Lake. It was designed in 1947 and was for 20 years the home of the US Grand Prix, where it, among other things, saw the Lotus 49 win 2 times. The layout was changed twice in 1953 and 1970, creating the current 5.5 kilometer track we see today. Now, Watkins Glen, of course, features several different track options, and the community has chosen for the one which adds the boot section and the chicane on the straight. Now, this means a few things. It means less top speed on the straights, more difficult overtaking opportunities, but at the same time, less potential traffic to worry about. At the same time, watch for the corners, because the drivers now have the opportunity to make more of a difference there. Now, last year, Michel Dudagnon grabbed pole position here at Watkins Glen, an important feat because it gave him the advantage he needed to grab the win in the race afterwards. Who will grab pole? We'll find out soon, as qualifying is about to get underway, but before we go there, let's strap in as we go on board the Lotus 49 for a lap around Watkins Glen.
Alright, we've got Ben Zoko and the GSRC Lotus 49, so let's do a lap around Watkins Glen. Coming down to the 90, the long braking zones of this car means it'll be even easier than usual to overshoot your apex. Also, because it's so difficult to avoid wheel spin when on the throttle, it isn't as fast to swing out as wide as you would in other cars. But the good news is, because you can't take the S's flat out in the Lotus, it's not quite as critical that you get an incredible launch off that first corner. If anything, setting yourself up to find the power before this final right-hander at the top of the hill will serve you best. Just keep your wits about you, because you'll need to be counter-steering your way through. Down the backstretch, before you know it, you've got to brake for the inner loop. You can take a fair bit of curb here, but the car is still going to be dancing around as you try to thread your way through this difficult chicane. From out of there, you immediately swing it into the carousel, where it's best to keep the car tucked down nice and tight to the curb. On the exit, watch out that you don't slide out of the banking. You'll have very little time before you got to bring it across and brake hard for the chute. Losing it here is going to be a race ender, because there's no runoff to save you on the outside of the corner. We continue to plunge downhill now into the toe of the boot. The car will compress at the bottom, but coming out the other side, you've got this giant hill that needs you to swing your speed through the corner as best you can. That's because it's actually a fairly long stretch down to the heel of the boot, where drivers often try and overtake if they're close enough. Stay off the tiny little curve to the inside, because it'll upset the car horribly. But this is another spot where you have very little time on the power before you're setting up for the left-hander that returns us to the main circuit. With almost no downforce, the lack of grip on this off-camber corner becomes even more apparent and frustrating. Ease back onto the power, and now we come to the penultimate corner. In most cars, this is frighteningly fast, but even the banking doesn't keep you from needing to slow up quite a bit to make it through. And then there's that scary final turn with the Armco sitting right at the edge of the track. Setting yourself up to be clean on the power and not coming in too hot will serve you well. But hopefully you've now finished a lap around Watkins Glen. There we see a lap around the track, just around the Finger Lakes of New York. And we were just commenting during the break about how surprised we are this series has taken a liking to this chicane version with the inner loop included, considering most retro series go without it. But we'll see if maybe that switches later. And what hasn't switched is the points for last season. It is still the same two players that have dominated most of the championships. Michel Dudignon wins by 7 points over Mick Claridge. And just to tell you how powerful of a force they were, look at the gap down to third. Billy Bob Wright, more than 100 points to the next driver back. He and Ove Trengrade in an incredibly close fight that came down to 1 point for that final podium spot. And Dave Price rounded out your top 5 for the season. Let's take a look at the F2 championship with Johan.
Yeah, the F2 championship last season also saw a dominating force, and that was the dominating force of David Rossi. Look at him. He won the championship by 51 points over Hideki Kofisto. Really well clear margin for the United Kingdom driver. Behind them, Andrew Eng was the final driver in the podium position. Don Good and Francisco Gutierrez also finished in the top 5 last season.
Now, the Constructors' Championship is a lot less leaning towards France, of course. UK, though, they have a lot of drivers that come in and compete, so it was very tough to beat them, especially with Claridge on the team. Dudignon did keep them up in second place. The US tried their best, and they did keep those top 2 countries honest. Finland started to come in towards the 4 late in the season. And then you could see Norway, with only Trangrade contributing, had a tough time trying to keep up. But still, Ove notching up quite a few points in the end. Let's take a look at the race details of what we've got for this opening round.
Yeah, this is of course round 1 of our 12-round Lotus 49 Championship. 2 watermarks, you could already see it in the points of last season. That means that there's 2 drop weeks. The 2 worst results of each driver will be removed. The race distance today here at Watkins Glen, 20 laps with open setups, and the points pay out to 25th position, with 50 points going to the victor.
And if you enjoy this, once again, we are back on the iRacing Esports Network. We highly encourage you to subscribe, because not just the Lotus 49 series is on here, but all the World Championship series, as well as many other private leagues. And of course, Global Sim Racing Channel is proud to be on the stable of networks that bring you all the racing here on IESN. Watching our current pole sitter, this is Rob Olynyk as he works his way into the boot section down towards the chute. Mick Claridge's first lap, not good enough for pole, actually down in third, and the driver challenging him, not only Rob Olynyk, but Mick was telling me before the race, Roman Pawlowski is looking incredibly strong. He's put himself on the front row in that number 8 machine.
I have to say, this qualifying looks to shape up very, very spicy, because we have 3 drivers within, well, basically 1/10 of a second of each other, all fighting for that pole position lap time. We're looking at Roman Pawlowski at the moment. He is currently in the booth section. I think of the 3 drivers that are fighting for pole position, it will be Rob Olynyk, who is the first one who will come across the line. He's now turning back to the penultimate corner, breaking for that one. And we're looking at Enzo Kanta. He's maybe also a driver that we can look at in the race. He completes the second lap now. That one will be slower. No, actually not a lap time. He will stay on the 47.6. Rob Olynyk actually goes to the pits. His qualifying is over, but still he has a pole position. Let's see if he can stay in front compared to Roman Pawlowski, who's now coming around the last corner. 46.6 was his quickest lap time. This time around it's a 47.8. He doesn't improve. Mick Claridge, he has the best papers, Joe, to improve on that time and get pole position.
And he's got a good chance. There was a big error from Roman, which explains that very slow lap time. We saw it on screen coming out of the toe of the boot. Mick Claridge, however, I've not been able to watch and see if his is any better. Let's see. No, 46.9. He will stay in third as well. First lap seems to be the ticket for a lot of drivers. Bruce Nelson has come back to race once again. And after his second lap, he does improve to bump himself up to 11th, it looks like.
Tommy Mikonhola coming around the final corner for his second lap time. He's all the way down in 13th. That's not usually where we see him, especially in the season finale last season at Monza. He was right up there, but here again he cannot improve. It seems like a lot of the drivers are struggling in their second lap time to improve, Joe. that the first lap is the moment that you can set a quick lap time.
Marcellus Breuning going to be the last one to cross the line with his second lap time. His first one didn't count, his second one did, and that puts him up to 20th. Let's take a look at the weather, see if that has anything to do with it. It is pretty hot out on track. 85 degrees air temperature and 111. This looks very similar to the MX-5 race that we saw last night with the Advanced Mazda Cup. It was 112 degrees on the track when we started the race there. So these drivers are going to be slipping and sliding around. Thankfully, not much wind to throw them around. The big question always that we have with Watkins Glen, though, Johan, is the draft. How much of a factor is that going to play in these Lotus 49 cars?
Well, Lotus 49 usually isn't that much of a factor, but Watkins Glen is Watkins Glen, so draft is always, plays a part here. However, with the layout that they've chosen, with the chicane added, with the boot section added, you have a lot less long straights. The straights are a lot shorter, which breaks the draft. And that means that draft will be less of a factor, for example, compared to 13 weeks ago when we had a different layout here, and the draft really helped the drivers following competitors.
All right, qualifying is over, so let's go through our starting grid. Rob Olynyk is on the pole with Roman Pawlowski next to him. Unusually, Mick Claridge all the way down in third. Marco Kika next to him in fourth. Marco continuing to improve every race. Enzo Cantor returns. Glad to see the Italian back once again in fifth. Ian Haycox will be P6. Then it's Matt Wright starting seventh, followed by Gary Teal in eighth. Row 5 has Daniel Sadler on the inside in ninth, and Caden Bean starts in 10th.
Just outside the top 10 is Bruce Nelson starting the race in P11. He's being flanked by Matt Morris. Tommy Mikonhola is on the inside of row 7. He's followed by another Haycox, Hugh Haycox. He starts in P14. P15 behind him it's Philip Burkhardt, followed by Hideki Kofisto. New driver Manach Stefan starts the race in 17th in front of Michael Ren. Row 10 we can find Francisco Javier Gutierrez and Marcellus Breuning.
And it's Don Good starting 21st, followed by Colin Coker, another new driver. James Ellis 23rd. And the only driver not to put a time in is Gary Anderson. He certainly got his work cut out for him in a relatively large field out today. As you can see, the car is starting to grid up on this downhill plunge into the 90. Shouldn't be too much of a problem with the runoff towards the outside, but still cars can get tangled, and it is important to get yourself a good launch down towards the backstretch. Flowing through the S's, drivers will have to sort themselves out. It is certainly not flat out in these cars up through those corners. So as the lights come up and the engines start to rev, round 1 about to get underway. Green flag is out here in Watkins Glen for the Lotus 49 Grand Prix Legends Series, and it is a great start for third place driver Mick Claridge, already up into second, past Roman Pawlowski, manages to sneak through in the first corner. In fact, Roman already under threat from Marco Kika as they come into the S's, but Marco's going to back out of it. Otherwise, it looks like it is clean through the first corner.
It's very clean, single foul all the way up front. Let's look at Rob Olynyk because Mick Claridge is extremely close, immediately outside of the SS, dives to the inside, on the inside of the chicane. A very difficult overtaking place here, but Mick Claridge has the inside, side by side in the chicane. It seems like Mick Claridge has the car length in front, finishes the deal, gets to the carousel. Mick Claridge back up front.
Both drivers aggressive on the first lap, nobody willing to give up, but they managed to sort it out. Impressive stuff there at the top. Although we've had a crash with Coker in the background, everybody else seems to have gotten through.
Yeah, Coker collided with Anderson there. Also something else that happened was Michael Ren. Very weird what happened with him. He was basically stationary, didn't get going when the green light dropped. A lot of drivers almost piled into the back of him. Luckily none did do that on the start line. But Kerry Anderson once again now hard into the wall. He will probably be retiree. His car looks to have a lot of damage.
Seeing some action between Kanta and Kika. Kanta tried to go side by side in the toe, but in the heel nearly got into the back of the fin. Thankfully, both are able to continue. They work their way out of the boot, back onto the main course. Your order is now Mick Claridge in first, Olynyk in second, Pawlowski third, Kika fourth, and Kanta fifth.
And one thing that we saw in practice, of course, Joe, was Claridge being very quick. He wasn't slower than Rob Olynyk and Roman Pawlowski in practice. Just in qualifying, it seemed like he couldn't get his lap time together. Let's see if actually now he's leading the pack, can create a gap to the drivers that are behind him. And if Marco Kika and Enzo Kansa can fight for those podium positions behind him, Gary Teal and Matt Wright are following suit. And all the top 7, top 8 are starting to stretch out a bit. None of the drivers trying to go side by side as to reach the S's.
Right on board with our leader, you can see Olynyk dropping back slightly, so what you were saying seems to be very valid, and in fact Polanski is starting to threaten as he closes up on the back of Olynyk's tiger-colored car. Not close enough for an attempt into the inner loop. They come around through the carousel down towards the chute, and he loses out a little bit. Olynyk looking very strong in these fast corners.
It's very interesting to see. You mentioned, of course, that Mick already told that Roman Polanski seemed to be very quick here at Watkins Glen. If Mick and Roman are around the same pace, I think that Rob Olynyk just found something overnight, because he really seems to button it at the moment and just is able to stay with Mick Claridge in this difficult boots infield section. Gap between the two drivers is less than a second still.
A little bit of a mistake that we saw on screen from Pawlowski into the toe, very wide. That allowed Marco Kika to start to catch up, but unfortunately Kika not a good enough run off the toe. Now as they come over the crest of the awkward turn 9, let's see if he can gain here. Once again, slipping and sliding around the number 7, struggling as we got a crash. Looks like Tommy Unhola involved. Caden Bean, yeah, Matt Morris.
Yeah, let's see. It was coming out of the boot section. Matt Morris just too late under braking, tipping. I think Tommy Miko and Hola around, and then the number 10 is the car of Caden Bean. Couldn't avoid the crash in front of them. You can see there on screen just turning him around. All the cars into the wall. Luckily, Caden Bean and Tommy Miko and Hola didn't seem to have a lot of damage. It's mostly the car in front that turned it around to number 11 that seems to hit the wall quite hard.
Poor Tommy, he almost went completely over. You saw his car start to grip as he was spun around. Thankfully, he stayed right side up, and he is able to keep going in 15th place. However, both Morris and Bean had to take a tow and are now in the pits, and I think have retired from the race. Meanwhile, we've jumped back to 6. This is Gary Teal in a nice little fight with Enzo Canta for a top 5. Whoa, and Canta sliding into the chute, somehow collects it together and finds the late apex and cuts off the likes of Gary Teal. Still doesn't lose the place, but that got exciting.
Yeah, but it seems like Enzo Canta doesn't have the pace that the two drivers behind him have. Teal, Wright, and also Sadro are just looking a lot more feisty at the moment than the Italian, who cannot follow the pace of Kika and the top 3 in front of him. He is a little bit the cork on the bottle of those drivers just outside the top 5 that are trying to get the P5 position away from him.
Riding on board with Matt, you can see up ahead of these two how big the gap is. It's already 2.5 seconds, and we've got another crash. This one with Hugh Haycox, Philip Urquhart, and Manash Stefan.
This was a crash waiting to happen because all these drivers were behind Hideki Corfisto. It basically happened with Manash Stefan going very wide through the penultimate corner in the boot. Philip Urquhart tried to go on the inside there, touched each other. Sorry, that was not Philip Urquhart, it was Hugh Haycox. Philip Urquhart was the driver behind, couldn't avoid them. Just bunched all towards each other into the wall. Now all the drivers seem to keep going. You see on board to Hugh Haycox, he has a big wobble in the middle of the corner. That sends him to the inside of Manash Stefan. Hard crash for all of them. And luckily, it seems like only Manash Stefan can continue. Philip Urquhart and Hugh Haycox are crabbing very bad.
Yeah, I was about to say they are definitely coming into the pits considering their pace. There you see Stefan running in 18th. Surprising how much attrition we've had early on. We're only on lap 4. And right now, 19 cars are on track and going.
It's one of the things that I mentioned in the lap guide. It is such a difficult... as Enzo Canta once again goes very slippery in going into the boot, into the chute. He almost lost control of his car there. Gary Teal immediately able to close the gap. But what I was mentioning in the track guide, this is a very difficult layout. It's very difficult to overtake other people there, so you have to take a lot more risk. And you see that, well, it's not working out for the drivers. A little bit too much risk for them, and that causes some incidents which wrecks some of the people out. Two groups are starting to form here. Mick Claridge is alone. Rob Olynyk cannot follow his pace at the moment. Roman Pawlowski, Marco Kika are dropping back a little bit as well, but the best battle here is for P5. Enzo Kanta, Gary Teal, Matt Wright, Daniel Cedro are all very close together, trying to fight for that P5 position.
Kanta still leads that train, and no one able to overtake quite yet. I have a feeling that this is a pressure cooker of sorts building up. Wonder if this is going to bring in Bruce Snelson as well. He's not too far behind this group, and if anyone starts to battle, we could see a 5-car fight start to erupt. Now starting lap 5 through the 90 and up the hill once again. We don't have to go there, but I can report that Francisco Gutierrez had an incident in the inner loop. Just a single car wreck, went off into the barrier and got it going once again. Right on board with the number 4 car, Daniel Sadro riding in 8th place. You'll get a good idea of just how much the draft is worth as we run down the backstretch, and it looks like not a whole lot.
It was more the braking that he won 2 car lengths towards Matt Wright. Now, you were mentioning Bruce Snelson last lap. He was a second quicker than Enzo Kanta, so it seems like Bruce Snelson is going to make it a 5-car battle very soon. So, although this lap doesn't seem like he is as quick as he was last time around, so let's keep an eye on his pace. But these 4 drivers, especially if you look from Daniel Sedler's point of view, they're very close together. And while Daniel Sedler is having a good look, he can now figure out what the weaknesses are of the cars in front of them, which corners they're strong, which corners they're not, and just plan his moves forward, because he looks really quick and just trying to set himself up for a move on Wright and Teal.
Do you think there's enough race that Sadro can play patient and sit and watch here for a moment? Do you think he's really got to go if he's got pace over these 3?
I mean, you always have to go when you have the opportunity, but you could see it in the true crashes we saw a little while ago, that if you just try to force the issue, you're just going to cause a wreck here. The track is so tight. Daniel Sedler got very loose there, going out of the booth chicane, loses a few car lengths doing that. It is very difficult to overtake, and if you try to force the issue, you're just going to cause an incident. So you have to be patient and really work out strategically where you're quicker and where you can make the overtake.
Right now, the quickest is still Mick Claridge, setting fast lap after fast lap multiple times. He's stretched himself out to 1.7 seconds over Olynyk. Coming up the hill one more time. There's our leader right now, already coming across a little bit of traffic. Gary Anderson has got the car back out, is trying to let the leaders by very carefully. He's not got too many gaps. Now he can finally go as Marco Kika gets through.
Let's look at the pace that these drivers are having. Marco Kika and Roman Pawlowski last time were basically the same lap time between thousandths of a second, so very close between them. Rob Olynyk was around 3/10 quicker. And Mick Claridge on his turn was half a second quicker than Rob Olynyk, so it looks like this top 4 battle's just stretching out a little bit.
Oh, we had a pass for position farther down in the field. Marcellus Breuning, I think, just got overtaken by Michael Wren. Wonder if we could get a replay here. Watch from on board with Wren. Just straight out broke his opponent down into the inner loop and made it stick.
Very strong underbraking from Michael Wren there. He's having a good run at the moment in this race, although he seems to feel the pressure a little bit. Now he fences off in the booth section. He started the race in P18, gaining 5 positions already in the progress. Good run for Michael Wren here today at Watkins.
Yep. Breuning's going to try and stay with him, but not really threatening at the moment. I wonder if we could jump back to the likes of Kanta, because he's started to pull a little bit of a gap over Gary Teal. Maybe he's got his legs underneath him now. He hasn't completely dropped him. You can still see they've got all 4 cars close together, and now Bruce Snelson less than a second behind. So that 5-car battle seems to have come true.
Yeah, it's more that the drivers in front are starting to pick up the pace a little bit. They were driving 49s a few laps ago. They're back into 48s. That means that Bruce Snelson cannot close the gap as quick as he wanted. In the meantime, Matt Wright is taking a little look on the inside of the chicane on Gary Teal. Thinks the better of it, goes back to the racing line. But Matt Wright is probably seeing the same thing as you're seeing, that Enzo Kanta is starting to slowly go away, slowly drive away, finding a little bit of pace. Matt Wright, if he wants to follow Enzo Kanta, has to find a way by Gary Teal quickly.
Wonder how much of this is adapting to the hot conditions as well. The temperature's not gone down. It's still 111 degrees. And the drivers have told us before that the setup can kind of make a difference in these cars when it comes to temperature.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially if you're going several laps into a stint already, the tire temperatures will only go up and up, and you can see that the drivers that were quick at the beginning of the stint suddenly have to slow down a little bit to counteract that rise of temperature on their rubber. That means that their pace will fluctuate a little bit. In the meantime, I'm just looking at Matt Wright still. He's putting a lot of pressure on Gary Teal this lap. The whole infield section, he sees right on the tail, only 2 car lengths away from him. As they come out of the boot section, he's still right there. Gary Teal will see him in the rearview mirror. As I say that at the penultimate corner, it almost looked like Matt Wright was losing a little bit, but Gary Teal sliding a lot in that corner, immediately losing the advantage he gained.
Gary is pushing as much as he can to try to keep the likes of Matt Wright behind him. Matt not going to have enough opportunity, though he does poke his nose out into the 90. This is where drivers tend to want to get themselves an opportunity up the hill as we now ride on board. Looks like he's closing slightly again.
It's so interesting to see what Matt Wright is doing, because he's not close enough to actually do an overtaking maneuver. But what he is doing is just showing his nose every time, just going a little bit to the inside to let Gary Teal know, hey, I'm here. Don't forget about me. I'm riding a Teal as Enzo Kenta spins. Enzo Kenta has a really big moment in the middle of the chicane. Gary Teal gets by him. Matt Wright has to step on the brakes, get by him as well. Daniel Cedro, Bruce Nelson, all of them on each other like a bunch of hornets. It's Enzo Kenta now around the outside, but it means he has the inside for the next corner. Side by side with Daniel Cedro, who will brake later. It seems like Enzo Kenta brakes later, but he has very hot tires now after that half spin. Bruce Nelson tries to dive on the inside, get a position with that as well. Now he is side by side with Daniel Cedro Nelson. Side by side as they go to the bottom of the boot, the heel of the boot here. Side by side as they reach the exit of the corner. Bruce Nelson can take more momentum. No, it seems like Daniel Cedro has slightly more momentum, and he now has the inside of the next corner.
Bruce has been waiting for this to happen, to give an opportunity, and he finds himself stuck around the outside of 2 corners now, still not willing to give up, and Daniel Cedro finds it switched around as they come into turn 9. Can he finally get the job done? Both of them squirming under power. Still, Cedro's going to make him work for it into the penultimate corner. Not often you see drivers manage to go too wide through there. Bruce Nelson finally gets it done and takes the apex of the final turn.
Half a lap side by side. What an amazing battle between the two. Now let's go back to see what actually happened with Enzo Kenta in the chicane last time. Go to a replay of exactly what happened. He was, of course, leading comfortably, going to the chicane, just too much speed, it almost seems like. Already losing the car on the entry of the corner. Great save from the Italian, though, to not spin and hit the wall. But all that momentum lost mean that a lot of drivers, well, 2 of the drivers could find their way back. And that kind of means that the cork is from the bottom, Joe, with Gary Teal now leading the pack. Let's see if he can continue extending the gap compared to Matt Wright. What can Enzo Kenta do? Can he recover and get those positions back?
Indeed, you could tell that that was really building, and eventually when something happened, everybody scrambled. Also, credit to all the drivers for not running into Enzo Kenta. So good save from him and great heads up from everybody else. Is that Kenta going wide again that we see there? Or is that Matt Wright? There was someone there going through the chute that was way wide.
No, there was behind Kenta. No, there was Enzo Kenta. You're absolutely right. He just had a little wobble on the inside of the corner. Didn't cost him that much, well, not as much time as he did in the chicane, but again, a few car lengths that he loses. Then we'll put some pressure on behind him, because Bruce Nelson, you were mentioning it, Joe, when he got by Daniel Cedro, he's looking very quick. And let's see if Bruce Nelson now can close the gap and put the Italian under some pressure. Again, sliding Enzo Kenta there coming out of the boot. He's really struggling with this tire with this weather conditions or something, because he does not seem comfortable on that Lotus 49.
And people always talk about these being very rock-hard tires on these old Lotus 49s, but can you make them angry? Can you overheat them?
It looks like Enzo Kenta is surely doing that here, because corner after corner he's sliding more than a drift driver. He seems to be really uncomfortable now. Let's see what he does through turn 1. This time for the 90-degree right-hander. Seems a little bit more comfortable though, although he clubbed the curves on quite hard compared to the 2 drivers in front of him. Bruce Nelson behind him, he won half a second on that last lap. With half a second between them, he's going to put the Italian under more and more pressure in the final 10 laps.
Well, now he's starting to smooth out, so the Italian seems to have figured things out and calmed down a little bit. This run through the chicane a little bit better. We're halfway through the race now. All this has caused this group of drivers to fall back significantly from the top 4. It is 8.5 seconds up to the next driver, which is still Marko Kika, who has lost ground on Roman Pawlowski. So despite Mick's predictions that Roman being the real challenge... sorry, we've got to go to Gary Teal. Gary Teal's had a problem, and he's dropped a lot of positions.
Ooh, he hit the wall. That was in the booth. Yeah, coming into the booth after the shoot. Yeah, he's crabbing. He hit the wall quite hard as well. Yeah, that right suspension will have a lot of damage. We go to a replay of what happened. Just look at him here. Goes through the corner. Look at his right side tires. The right side of the tires. He hits the curb zone, hits the grass, loses control a little bit. And that tank slapper sends him hard into the wall, and that will mean a lot of suspension damage for Gary Teal. He's still crabbing, being overtaken by numerous drivers. So that's our P5 driver out of the race.
Watching on board. Yeah, it started so innocent, and he tried to collect it together. You can see, despite his counter steering, it still found the powder blue Armco. And that is a shame, because he started 8th. He was running 5th. He had made great inroads. And the road ends here, unfortunately, for Gary Teal as he crabs it back to the pit lane.
Yeah, innocent is the correct word for that. Let's go to P2 as the battle between Rob Olynyk and Roman Pawlowski is heating up. Look at the lap time that Roman Pawlowski had last time around. He was 0.6 of a second quicker than Rob Olynyk. The gap between these two drivers is 0.7 of a second. Roman Pawlowski is just closing down the gap little bit by little bit. And we were mentioning that Roman Pawlowski wasn't as quick as Mick Claridge's Joe. Last time around, there was less than a 10 between the two. So I think that Roman Pawlowski does have the speed to maybe challenge Mick Claridge. There's only one problem for him, and that's that Rob Olynyk is between the two of them.
Yeah, I guess all I need to do to light a fire under a driver is mention that they aren't as fast as we thought. And Roman certainly seems to be doing what he can to try and get back into P2. I really wish we could have seen what would have happened if Roman could have gotten by Rob a little earlier to try to challenge Mick. Oh, what a big slide through turn 9 is certainly not going to help the situation. You can see the time lost now aboard the yellow machine of Roman. He's got to regain all that gap.
Yeah, he's pushing hard. That mistake was completely caused by just taking too much speed into that corner. Off camber, of course, so it's difficult to lose grip, or easy to lose grip. That's exactly what happened with Roman there. He now has to make up all the time that he lost. This time around, coming over the start-finish line, he did a 1:47.2. Even with the mistake though, Joe, he was only 0.03 of a second slower than he was the lap before. So still a very good lap time from him, although he was slightly slower than Rob Olynyk. It just seems like Roman Pawlowski is finding more and more pace in his final stages of the race.
So down the backstretch, breaking into the inner loop, Roman looking very good right there, actually. Looks like the number 8 gained a fair bit of time. Let's see if he can hold it through the carousel. Coming around the long banked right-hander as we look from the gearbox of Rob Olynyk. He has indeed cut it down to about 0.6 now. Chipping away once more. Pawlowski doing what he can.
Yeah, Rob Olynyk will see this in his rearview mirrors. He will see that car growing bigger and bigger in them. And know that Roman Pawlowski is going to put him under more and more pressure. But before that's actually there, let's go back to P5, because the battle between Matt Wright, who inherited the P5 position after Gary Teal's mistake, is being put under pressure by Enzo Canta, who's making a mistake as we speak. Very loose in the boot section there, loses a few car lengths. Behind them, Bruce Nelson and Daniel Cedro are falling back a little bit. They cannot follow the pace of Wright and Canta. There's a little bit that 4-car train is now being divided into 2 groups of 2.
Wow, another big slide through the heel of the boot for Canta. It seems to be the sort of Mick Claridge style of driving for the Italian, as he's all sorts of sideways through many of the corners. They are dropping Bruce Nelson slightly. They've got a little bit of a gap, making it pairs of 2 instead of a group of 4. Coming through the final corner, Enzo once again trying to see if he can get to the tail of Matt Wright, but the number 12 car has been withstanding the pressure very well. Only 8 laps to go that he has to continue to hold down this top 5.
Yeah, very close between them. Even closer as well is the battle for P2. Roman Pawlowski has dropped the gap between himself and Rob Olynyk even further. Was half a second quicker last lap around. He is right on the gearbox. Only 2 car lengths between the two at the moment as they go through the carousel. Going into the booth section down the chute, you can see that the gap between the two drivers visually as well is just a lot closer. Gary Anderson in front of them. That's going to throw a bit in the mix. That's Rob Olynyk again. Just avoids him. There was a hair between those 2 cars. What a slide. Gary Anderson, of course, is crabbing quite heavily. I would say park that car, Gary, and just take the tow, because you're throwing a wrench in the mix of a lot of leaders like this.
Let's watch from Rob's view. Talk about a heart in your throat moment. Not where you want a mistake. Just barely stays out of him. Oh, good job by both drivers.
I also don't think it was that much of a mistake of Rob Olynyk. I just didn't think he expected that Gary Anderson would be that slow. Of course, Gary Anderson is crabbing at the moment, so he has a lot of damage, and that's causing him to be that slow. But it seemed like Rob Olynyk just didn't anticipate that, and that almost caused a big incident between the lap car and the P2 driver.
Never the way that you want to see leaders have their race ended. Coming down the front stretch now. This battle's still very much on between them, but Pawlowski just can't get close enough to send one up the inside. He's going to run out of laps unless he starts to get aggressive here, or he finds another good mistake from Olynyk. Currently, though, the New England driver has been managing to hold back Roman despite his speed. Down the back stretch, yet again, we see too many car lengths between second and third place.
Oh, but look, just going into the chicane, how quick Roman Pawlowski is. Well, he's too quick because he overshot the next corner. Too much speed, too much risk he's taking in the chicane. You can immediately see on screen that the gap has increased to, well, around 0.7 of a second. Rob Olynyk is a little bit of free air behind him. Now let's go back to the battle between Enzo Kanta and Matt Wright, because that one is still very, very hot. 2 colleagues between the two as they go through the carousel. There's not any lap traffic in front of them as they reach the booth, so they don't have to worry about that. Enzo Kanta taking a little look at the inside, not to try and move, but just to let Matt Wright know that he's still there. Behind him, Bruce Nelson was slightly quicker than the 2 drivers in front. He closed down the gap to Enzo Kanta by 0.3 of a second last lap.
And not only that, he's leaving Daniel Sadro behind him. So Bruce Nelson finding himself with a little bit of pace here. Just wonder if he needs to work on his consistency to try and be a little bit more competitive with these 2. Still, you can see how aggressive that Kanta is looking, poking his nose at multiple corners, a bit wide through turn 9 for Matt Wright, and now we see an opportunity for the Italian. But it's a very fast penultimate corner, and he's not going to have a chance here. What can he do, setting himself up for the pit straight? Here they come around the final banked right-hander, and a good exit from Matt Wright is going to keep himself safe. Critical moment, and Matt Wright responds.
Yeah, Matt Wright was lucky there because he not only made a mistake in turn 9, also in turn 8 before that. And that gave Enzo Kanta almost all the things that he needed to make a pass. Now, as you can see on track as well, the cloud cover has come over the track. That has dropped the track temperature dramatically, 5 degrees Celsius lower than it was at the start of the race. That might give the drivers a little bit more grip in this final parts of the race. 6 more laps to go. Enzo Kanta still is only 3 car lengths behind Matt Wright as he reaches the chicane. Again, taking a little look on the inside. Just to take a little look. He's sliding though. He's sliding. He's losing control. And that will give maybe an opportunity to Bruce Nelson to close down the gap.
Bruce Nelson has got to be feeling pretty eager. He started this race in 11th. And right now is sitting in 7th place, looking at a potential top 5, depending on what he can do with these 2 before the laps run out. That's going to be the key part of this equation. How many laps are left? Because Bruce Nelson can't wait too long.
No, but he is doing everything that he needs to do. He's currently in the popcorn position, just waiting to see what is going to happen with those few drivers in front. Meanwhile, we're looking at Mick Claridge. He is still our race leader today. What a race he's having after he got by Rob Olynyk and by Roman Pawlowski at the beginning of the race. He's just, well, basically closed the deal since then. The gap between him and the rest is 4.5 seconds at the moment. He's just slowly, consistently closing down the gaps, closing out the race on his way for the first win of the season.
How about a little bit of love to two drivers who've made great inroads? Marcellus Borning just took another position over Don Good, but credit to both of them because they started in 20th and 21st respectively, and they are now 13th and 14th respectively. Now, some of that is due to the attrition that we mentioned earlier, but any position gained is a legitimate position, if you ask me.
Absolutely. Both of these drivers winning 7 positions in the progress, and no matter how you look at that, that's an amazing result for either of them. So good job to both of them. They're still battling it out with 5 laps to go. I think that this is a battle that will stay close until the race is over. Who has the, as I say, that Enzo Kanta taking a look at the inside. Enzo Kanta crashes into Matt Wright in the chicane. He took too much speed. Bruce Nelson, what an avoidance of Bruce Nelson. That is also Daniel Sedro having to brake completely, but Enzo Kanta, he looks to get out of that unscathed. But it was the Italian who caused the crash, but just taking way too much speed, it seemed like, into the chicane. We go to a replay of that here, just diving in the inside, losing control, slamming into Matt Wright.
And wow, get out your sewing kits. Bruce Nelson threaded the needle between those two spinning cars, stomped on the brakes to have to do it, but watch this from the number 9 car's view.
That's...
Oh.
If we're ever gonna have space travel, we need Bruce Nelson as a fighter pilot, because that were some skills. He's just completely threaded the needle there.
Gonna watch from Canta's view. Yeah, just outbraked himself and started to lose the car. That's not the first time we've seen him do that. In fact, that was very similar to when he lost it before and gave away his position. This time, unfortunately, it affected other drivers.
It also has the driver that was mostly affected is Daniel Sedro, who's crabbing and actually letting Hideki Kurvista by now. I think it's actually race over for Daniel Sedro, who was an unlucky victim in that. He was the 4th driver in the group, but was completely caught out by Matt Wright spinning in front of him. He collided with him, and that's probably race over for the Midwest driver.
Yep, Sedro indeed brings it into the pit lane. That is such a shame for the run that Sedro was having. It's very contrasting fortunes between the trailing drivers of that incident. Sedro comes in, Snelson up to a top 5.
Yeah, but the top 5 position isn't set in stone yet, because look at the Italian behind him. He's right behind him. Just 2 free car lengths between them as they go through the carousel. Enzo Kanta's having a great run through that corner. Trying down the chute to close down the gap. You can see them here, Bruce Nelson just in front, and Kanta taking a wider line there. He had more speed at that part of the track. Couldn't find his way past. The gap between himself and Bruce Nelson increases a little bit, but it seems like Enzo Kanta, well, is trying to get a P5 position back. And once he does that, it will be just him and Bruce Nelson. All the drivers like Matt Wright, like Daniel Sedro, are out of the equation. It's just these 2 drivers for P5. As Enzo Kanta takes too much speed. Well, that's not the first time we said that today. Into the turn 8 that is. That gives Bruce Nelson maybe the air that he needs.
Don't forget Gary Teal back there, who is caught up to the back of Canton because of all this sliding around.
He's a few laps down though, Gary Teal. So he's not
yes.
a part. Yeah, he used to be a part of the battle. Maybe that actually is a little bit heartbreaking for Gary Teal, because he's seeing everything develop in front of him, and he knows I should have been a part of that battle. But with that crash in the boot section of the track, he of course is now several laps down. I think he'll just finish in P19. And let's go back to the battle for P2, because we took a little look at that last lap. Rob Olynyk and Roman Pawlowski are still very close to each other as they go through the chicane section. Just a few car lengths between them. And it seems like Roman Pawlowski is still just quicker than Rob Olynyk, but Rob Olynyk is just defending like the best you can do. He's not giving him any inch to try to get his nose in. That means that Roman Pawlowski cannot find his way back. As I say, that Rob Olynyk goes very wide, slides through the chute. But still enough distance in front of Roman Pawlowski to stay P2.
Roman took a look at it, down into the toe of the boot, but this time it's Roman who finds himself going wide into the corner. Still stays with him, less than half a second between the two drivers. At what point does Pawlowski make his move? It's going to be 2 to go when they hit the line this time by. They are 5.5 seconds back from McClaren, who's essentially been cruising ever since he took the lead on lap 1. Look at the counter steering, though, from on board Roman's perspective, as he really has to saw at the wheel to try and stay with the likes of Rob Olynyk.
Yeah, we saw that earlier in the race as well. The Roman is just pushing as hard as he can, and that's causing him to sometimes overdrive a little bit, and that means that he has to oversteer quite a bit. Now, you asked the question with 2 laps to go, when are you going to try it? I think that the position to do it is now, because with 2 laps to go, the amount of chances that you have are diminishing, and you need to grab every opportunity that you get with both ends. He's going through the S's, takes a lot more curbstone, a lot more risk for Roman Pawlowski. It's paying off though, because as they come over the crest, he's right behind him. There clubbers the curbstone a little bit too hard though on top of the S's. That causes Rob Olynyk to win 1-2 car lengths in front.
160 miles an hour with the rear wheel spinning for Angelica Pawlowski, and still manages to keep it moving forward through the carousel. This is the closest we've seen that number 8 car, I think, all race, but I don't think it's still quite close enough unless we get another mistake from Rob Olynyk. Nope, this time it's going to be Roman sending it sliding into the chute, and all that time has been lost once again.
Ooh, let's go back to Enzo Canta, who almost loses control of his car because he was being unlapped by Gary Teal. Gary Teal got a lap back. That almost sent Enzo Canta into a little spin as they reached the chicane. And this completely means that Enzo Canta cannot challenge Bruce Nelson for the P5 position. We go to a little replay of that now. You can see Gary Teal on the inside here, getting by the position, and Enzo Canta just having a suboptimal line in that corner. Little slide from him, he can continue though, but like I said, that means that the battle for P5 is over. We can completely focus now on the battle for P2. 1 more lap to go. Robert Pawlowski lost a little bit of time sliding through the penultimate corner now. He has, well, basically 0.7 of a second to bridge if he wants to get a P2 position.
And the car that you see behind them is not for position. That's Daniel Sadro returning once again to try and finish his race as McClaren sets another fastest lap. All right, with the white flag out, what can Pawlowski do? And from what it looks like out of the exit of the 90, the answer is going to be not a lot. Just did not get a good run up the hill. Oh, but a little bit of a bobble from Rob Olynyk coming through the S's is going to bring Pawlowski back into it. He creeps forward, but this looks like too little too late.
Oh, Roman Pawlowski is so good in that chicane. He is so strong under brakes there. Immediately closes up to Rob Olynyk, who just took way too much risk in the S's. Completely clobbered the chicane. That lost him all the position that he had to Roman Pawlowski. Gap increases as they come out of the carousel down the chute. You can see both cars taking different racing lines. And Roman Pawlowski tries to take the wider line, swing it on the inside. Doesn't pay off, however. The gap stays around the same. Rob Olynyk now in the toes of the boot section, still in front of Roman Pawlowski. Again goes very well. Again takes a different racing line. That wider line just doesn't help to give him the momentum that he needs to close the gap.
Running out of opportunities. This is essentially the last hard braking moment into the heel of the boot, and still no chance for him. So up ahead of these two, we've got to go to Mick Claridge, who has 2 corners left to go. The Brit opens up this season with a dominant victory, took the lead at a critical moment on the opening lap, and he is going to win today as he slows up. What is Mick doing?
Fuel, I think.
He crosses the line, and then behind them you could see very, very close as Roman came oh so close, almost a 10th behind for second place.
Well, let's ask him after the race what exactly happened there. But let's in the meantime drop down to P9, because there's a very nice battle heating up between Hideki Kofisto, Tommy, Mika and Hola. Tommy was of course involved in an accident. He has been at the beginning of the race. He's been fighting his way forward ever since, but he's putting pressure on Hideki Kofisto in front of him for a top 10 position. This is Finland versus Finland. Who will be the best Finn here? Tommy Mikanhola looks a lot quicker, but with only 2 more corners to go, there's not a lot of opportunities that you have through that corner. Hideki Kofisto has 2 free car lengths to get himself the P9 position. Through the last corner is Miko Hola with more speed around the outside. Does he have more momentum? Tries to get a little bit more draft. He comes short. It is Hideki Kofisto coming home with P9 in the end.
That's going to be the last of our battles as Roinin, Good, and Stefan bring their cars home. So we're going to take a quick break here on the Global Sim Racing channel. We'll come back after this with the official results as well as driver interviews. On screen, though, you're going to see all the upcoming races here on the GSRC. Welcome back to Watkins Glen. The first round gave us quite a show. Maybe not for the win, but for the rest of the field. Some great battling all the way down. Mick Claridge, in the end, won, and it'll say by 2 seconds, but we're sort of trying to figure out exactly what his reasoning was for slowing down at the end. We'll have to ask him if he comes into the booth. Rob Olynyk got second by barely a tenth over Roman Pawlowski, who pressured him the entire way. Despite starting in second place, could not manage to overtake the pole sitter to get one step higher on the podium. Marco Kika, who fell back early in the race, found himself just in a quiet little ride to take fourth. Even still, I give this Finn a lot of credit to get a lot of points today. Bruce Nelson got a top 5, climbing from 11th on the grid, managing to avoid a lot of problems ahead of him, but also overtaking a lot of cars in the process. And then I'm going to borrow a turn of phrase from my cohort, Sean Ambrose. It was Enzo Canta's wild ride today, as he managed to hold the car together on a few slides, but not all of them. and wound up in 6th at the end. Ian Haycox, who we didn't really see a whole lot of, wound up in 7th behind him, and Matt Wright took 8th place. Hideki Koivisto goes from 16th to 9th. Then, rounding out the top 10, it is Tommy Unhola.
Another driver that won a lot of places finishes just outside of the top 10. Michael Wren winning 7 positions to finish P11 in the end. Marcellus Breuning and Don Good, they are the hard chargers today. They did it a little bit better, winning 8 positions to finish P12 and P13 respectively. Van Stefan was involved in a crash, but still comes home in a very respectable P14 in the end. And we have a few drivers that were involved in spins on their own. James Ellis, Colin Coker, they finished P15 and P16 in the end. And then there's an unfortunate lot of drivers that were involved in crashes and had to visit the pits. Daniel Cedro, P17 in the end. Hugh Haycox, P18. Gary Teal went out after his crash, still classified in P19 in the end, in front of Gary Anderson, the last driver in the top 20.
21st goes to Francisco Javier Gutierrez, who was a DNF today. Philippe Urquhart as well, 22nd. Matt Morse, 23rd. And Caden Bean finishes 24th and last today. With that, we have our winner, Mick Claridge, ready to talk to us. And I guess the first question is the one that was puzzling us the most. What was with the slowing down at the very end?
Oh, hi, hi, Joe. Yeah, my steering wheel slipped a bit, and that's why I wasn't trying to showboat in the last 2 corners either. I was struggling a bit there. My steering wheel completely slipped. It was like a 45-degree angle to me. So yeah, and then then the car went in neutral along the straight, and I just thought I'll make it anyway, so don't worry about it.
Okay, that makes more sense. We were curious because it didn't seem like you were out of gas, and we weren't sure why you would slow since it wasn't a huge gap, but that makes so much more sense. So this first round, let's talk about the opening lap. That seemed to be the critical moment for you in this race, getting by the likes of Rob Olynyk to take the lead.
Yeah, I messed up qualifying badly. I used the wrong tyre pressures in qualifying. I'm still confused about the tyres in this car, from, the last 2 seasons now. Still haven't got a grip on where you need. That was a good pun, wasn't it? Still don't, have any idea. But, so I used lower tyre pressures in qualifying thinking I'd be quicker. And I messed up my qualifying laps because of that. I didn't have bad laps. The car was just slow, So I went sort of over, a bit too much on the pressures for the race because I thought I've got to get past these guys as quick as I can, and the only way I'm going to do it is if I use a real decent amount of pressure in the tyres. So that was the only reason I got around them, to be honest. Well, I mean, Roman was a bit lucky. I got a good first gear off the line, so that's handy if you can get a good start. But yeah, I mean, I would have struggled behind Rob if I'd used normal tyre pressures there.
As evidenced by what Roman had to deal with, just could not get by him all race long. You seem to think that Roman would be your biggest threat. If Roman had gotten by Rob, do you think this would have been more of a fight between you two, or would you would have been able to mind the gap?
Well, I mean, we've done a couple of races now. This is the 3rd race we've done, and every time we've raced, Roman's been right on there with pace with me. And the gap's never got sort of more than a good sort of 1 second gap or whatever for the first sort of like 10, 12 laps, and then I seem to sort of get a gap that way, after that. So yeah, he's really sorting his stuff out this season. I'll tell you that, because that was a bit shocking, really, seeing it yesterday and the day before. But bless him, I love it. I love that's what I want. I want to be able to race people, and have close racing with everyone. I mean, Rob's there, man. Rob's going to be coming up as well. He was good today. He just had a bit of I know he's having sort of issues with not issues, but he's working around a problem with brakes and turning in and stuff like that. So he's going to be quick, and I'm going to be slower, Joe, to be honest with you, because I'm not really going to be practiced. This race was a one-off, really. I've had loaded practice for this race, and I'm not going to get that much practice for the rest of the season, and I'm going to miss a few races at the end anyway. So it's going to be a tight season. It's not going to be easy by any means.
Well, I think the audience will be glad for that, because even though it was tight last season, it was pretty much a 2-horse race. Congratulations on the win. We're looking forward to season 2 kicking off here.
Cheers, Joe. Can I just say hello to a few guys that are watching? There's Mike, there's Denise, there's Christina, and my old mate Tom. I haven't seen him for so long. This guy, and he just got in touch with all my friends and said, yeah, watch the race and all the rest of it. So I've got to go and meet him and give him a big hug because I ain't seen him for years and years and years. So hello to all that, guys.
Awesome stuff. That was our winner, Mick Claridge, giving a few shout outs here today. Glad he's got fans watching. Hopefully, Rob Olynyk has some fans watching because he put on a show, and Johan's going to talk to him about it.
Yeah, Rob, welcome to the booth, man. So many things that we can ask you. Now, just real quickly, we heard Mick just mentioned that you were struggling a little bit this week with brakes, with turning in. Was that also something today, or is that problem solved in the meantime?
No, that problem's not solved. That's just me not really knowing how to drive the car correctly. So I don't I haven't been blipping on downshifts and stuff. Mick's awesome. Mick wants everyone else to be faster. So in practice before the race today, he kind of just started sending me some private messages, like he watched my laps and noticed it. So I was practicing a little. I didn't do it in the race, but I got to start doing that. What he says makes a lot of sense.
Very good. Well, for someone who's maybe struggling a little bit with that, you had an incredible qualifying time, pole position. Looking backwards at the race, you had pole position, you were leading into turn one. Are you disappointed that Mick Claridge got by you that quickly, or was that something that you always kept in mind as a possibility?
I definitely thought it was a possibility. I figured he messed up qualifying. I know he's quicker than me, so he was either going to be stuck behind me if I ran a perfect race, or he got by soon. I wasn't really willing to battle hard through that first chicane. I wanted to last, so I didn't want to make contact or anything like that. But he was probably going to get by me at some point, I figured. So I was just trying to stick close to him and hope that he made a mistake, but he gradually pulled away.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, in the end of the race, you had a great battle, basically all race long, with Roman Polanski. How was it from your perspective? Were you as confident as you seemed on track? Because you seemed very sturdy, very defensive in such a strong way that it didn't seem like Roman Polanski would ever get by you, even if the race was 20 laps longer.
It's a super hard. If you're very similar pace to someone, it's really hard to get by them. So all I was concentrating on doing was not making mistakes. So I was braking a shade earlier than I normally would and making sure I got on the throttle early, and that was basically my strategy all race with him behind me. I think he might even be a little quicker than me. So I don't know. You just have to run a clean race. I made a couple little mistakes, but just got lucky that he didn't get to take advantage of it.
Very good. Well, you come home with P2 in the end. Looking at the season, of course, getting pole position and finishing P2 in the end, that's extremely respectable. That's a great start of the season. How confident are you that you can fight for the championship with the likes of Roman and Mick?
I don't know about that. I'm going to try. I'm going to try and get better. Hopefully the stuff Mick's telling me about does actually give me a little more pace. And then if that happens, maybe it's actually realistic. We'll see. With Mick and Michelle, I'm not putting as much time in. Michelle maybe not being here. Mick, I think Mick will still be right there no matter if he practices or not. So we'll see.
Very good. Well, we'll keep an eye on that. Enjoy the champagne at least. And congratulations with a great result here at Watkins Glen.
Thanks a lot, guys. See you later.
That was Rob Olynyk, our P2 finisher here at Watkins Glen. Now, in the meantime, Joe, you've caught up with P6 Enzo Kenta.
Exactly. It's great to have Enzo back, but Enzo, you had some excitement out on track. It looked like the car was a little slippery.
Hi, guys. I'm very happy to be today here. I really like so much this car. So I like the track too. So I said, why don't try this race this week? But probably I lost a little bit of feeling with this car because I didn't drive it from about 6 or 7 months. So I did a lot of mistakes. I thought I could be able to stay with the first train, but the track was very hot today, so the car was very slippery, and without perfect feeling with the car, you are not able to manage the oversteer exiting the corner. So I tried to be a little bit quite, and I was trying to be the first in the second train. But again, I did a mistake entering the chicane, and again, Matt was very fast in front of me. I gave him so much pressure because he started to do some mistakes. But we did a mistake in the same point together, both in the chicane again. We had a little touch. Unfortunately, he spun out, and I'm very sorry for that. I was almost stopping, and I let pass a car. I was sure it was Matt, but it was Bruce that is snaked between us and gained the position. So I tried to push very hard to recover that position, but again I was long on brakes another time, and I lost it. And in the last 5 laps, I think I was not able to drive anymore because I forgot how was hard to drive this car. My arms were not working so well at the finish. So I'm lucky to had finished the race without going into the wall.
I guess we have a new workout routine to promote to people driving the Lotus 49.
Yeah.
So it's glad to have you back. Like I said, does this mean you're going to be showing up most of this season, or is this more of a one-off?
I'm thinking about that because I don't know if you know that in this season iRacing service does a very hard change to my favorite car, that is Skip Barber, as you know. New time model 7 is on that car. The car changed completely, so it's not so fun like before. So many fast drivers are not very happy for that, and well, I can be fast too with the car, but without fun. So I'm thinking to change this season a car, and Lotus 49 is the second preferred car from me. So I'm thinking about it.
Well, their loss is our gain. Like I said, it's fantastic to not just have you out on track, but here in the booth. Congratulations, at least on a top 6. Hopefully next one will go a little bit more smoothly.
Yeah, thank you, guys. I was looking for the 5th place, but I'm happy. I'm happy, and I have to say, really, congratulations to the first drivers on the grid on the final results, because they are very, very, very fast and consistent, and it's incredible with this.
Very incredible. That was Enzo Canta, 6th place today. And lastly, we've got Tommy Unhola, who we saw have a fight all the way to the line. Johan's going to talk to the Finn.
Yeah, Tommy, welcome to the booth. Very busy race for you. A lot of things happened. That battle at the end with Hideki Kofiso, that really went to the line. How did it seem like for your perspective?
Oh yeah, that last fight was really fun. Hideki was defending well, and I really didn't have any chance. So it was fun to finish race like that. As it honestly was not very fun race otherwise, as car didn't feel very good at all, and then someone drove into me on second lap, and I think it broke the car or something, and it felt even worse. And it was actually not fun at all to drive today, so I'm actually happy that it finished that way, so I'm not completely in a bad mood about that.
Still a nice recovery race for you, though, because you were spun around, but you gained several positions after you came back to track. That at least must give you a good feeling coming out of this, that you recovered like that.
Oh yes, it was a good drive after that, and I was a bit annoyed, but could make it together again and drive normally. And it was actually, I was just came here to drive and not really fight so much, as I'm so tired, as Formula season starts in Australia, and I woke up 3:30 last night, or Friday night, and so on, and it feels like it's night now, and it's not. So I just came to drive and try to have fun, but car was not agreeing with me really, and the pace was not good. But I had a couple of good fights and passes, so it was not so bad.
I feel you're probably not the only European with who's approaching this weekend a little bit tiredly. Now, lastly, next week we're going to Japan. We're going to Tsukuba. Are you going to be able to participate in that race? And if you do, have you already practiced that track? How are you feeling with the Lotus 49 at Tsukuba?
Well, I have not tried it even there, and I have been very busy. I maybe try to make the race next week. I need to think when I'm not so tired, but today also I started practicing this morning and had like 30 laps of practice, so I have been a bit busy, and I maybe gonna drive. It can be fun track, or I don't know, but it could be fun or not. So I'm not sure yet.
Okay, well, we'll figure out next week for sure. Thanks for talking with us anyway, Tommy, and we'll hope to see you again next week.
Yes, thank you, and see you later.
That was Tommy Mikko and Hola, the last driver, coming in for an interview. He finished the race in P10.
That's going to close things out for us today. So we, of course, want to thank Lotus 49 community for bringing us back for another season of coverage, as well as IESN and iRacing in general for putting us on the iRacing Esports Network. If you get an opportunity, make sure and click that big red subscribe button so that you don't miss a moment here on IESN. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to Eric Ekholm and June Lalonde, who provide our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of their great work. Thanks to the team today, Johan, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. Don't forget, head on over to our YouTube page and hit that big red subscribe button as well so that you don't miss a moment here on the GSRC. As was mentioned in Johan's interview, next week we're going to Tsukuba. This will be the first time that this series is headed there. Very small, tight track, so I'm not sure this car will like that track very well, but it should put on a good show on Saturday, March 23rd at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. See you on the track.